Sometimes you just know there's going to be trouble right here in River City. Sometimes you know that there's a certain trajectory of what's going on that there's going to be some conflict or something. Jesus, knew that the Roman Empire was going in a certain way. There was growing discontent. And in this passage, he talks about the destruction of the temple, which happens just a few years later. It's not that Jesus is incredibly, magically foresightful. It's just that he was paying attention. Sometimes it's clear that things will not be easy. Next week, there's a congregational meeting. And we're going to talk about a building thing. And it won't be easy, because there's been 3 or 4 different ideas. We've talked about them. We've talked very heatedly about these things with each other. The committees come up with a recommendation, and there are folks who don't think it's a good idea. There will be conflict next week. There'll be a meeting in which people will stand up and say strongly held beliefs. But it will be okay. We will not be anxious. We will understand that there are going to be strongly held opinions. We will argue with each other just like we do in the political sphere, and it will turn out okay. There was great tragedy in the last week all over the world. Paris has captured our imagination, but it happened in many places. And I guarantee you, it's not over. I guarantee you that there is more to come. I guarantee you that some of it will be in America. But it will not destroy us. And we need not let the fear overwhelm us. But we know that it will not be easy. That there is a strangeness in the world right now, and that the confrontation between the forces of freedom and justice and the forces of this strangeness that frankly a lot of us don't understand at all, this will not be easy. But what do we do when we know it's not going to be easy? And Jesus has 3 wonderful suggestions for what to do in this situation when we know it's just not going to be as easy as we want it to be. The first thing that Jesus says is, be careful who you listen to and follow. Be careful who you listen to and follow. Just beware that no one leads you astray, Jesus says. And it's already happening. People are already taking what happened in Paris and making it into fear and hatred, and making folks turn inside and become all about fear and protection. Turning to fear and hatred and looking for followers so that we can return evil for evil. Beware of who you follow. The second thing that Jesus says is related to the first. He says, don't worry or be afraid. You'll be hear wars and rumors of wars. Do not be alarmed. What are you, crazy, Jesus? No. The message of the Bible again and again and again is, in the face of the trials and tribulations, do not be afraid. So do not fear, Isaiah writes, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Again and again and again. Jesus has sent the disciples on ahead in the boat, and he's walking on the water. He's doing something wonderfully miraculous, and in any other circumstance we would go, holy smokes, Jesus is walking on the water. But the disciples are filled with fear that this is somehow threatens their whole world. They saw him in Mark 6. They cried out because they saw Jesus and were terrified of Jesus. And immediately Jesus says to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." At the stable, at the tomb, over and over, be not afraid. The whole purpose of this passage of Jesus is to inoculate us, is to support us, is to prepare us for the inevitable, because we're all getting older, and there will be conflict, and there will be sinfulness, and we cannot let it destroy us. And so we prepare ourselves, and we know that these trials and tribulations will not destroy us, and these fears will not overwhelm us, and that we will refuse to be reduced to returning evil for evil, and that God's peace will be waiting for us, and that we can face these trials and tribulations, whether there's international or domestic. And by domestic, I mean domestic. That we can face these trials and tribulations without fear, which changes everything. The third thing that Jesus says is that this is just the beginning. That we can survive and cope with this by not following folks who will take us in the wrong direction, by not being afraid, and by keeping our eyes on what is going to happen. The birth pangs. This birth business, I hear it's not easy. I hear there's discomfort for months. I hear there's nausea and back pain. I hear there could be complications and anxiety. I hear that it can be the worst pain that a human being can endure. Then life. And this is the image that Jesus calls forth, this most basic image that all of the societies has seen with their own eyes, had heard the pain, the cries, the laughter. We all know ahead of time that it's going to hurt like crazy. We all know ahead of time that it's not going to be easy. And yet, still, people are born. And yet, still, we find such great joy in this, even when they're 14. Because it doesn't get much easier for a while. Still, we cry out for life in the midst of pain. Most of the things of this world require work and often conflict. Abby goes to this thing called CrossFit, which she wakes up early in the morning and goes to this place where she lifts weight and people yell at her, usually encouragement. And I just don't understand it. And she comes home achy and she says, "Gosh, I can't wait to do that again tomorrow." And in fact, up north, the Presbyterians have a CrossFit ministry because they have decided that this business of working hard at something and really struggling and coming out the other side of it is so reflective of the gospel that they've got a minister in there. So while other people are using language that is only found in a CrossFit gym, there's a minister over on the other side using other kinds of language to talk about this struggle and the no pain, no gain. Most of the things of value in the world require work and often conflict. This is obviously true in marriage. It's not always easy. In friendships, sometimes it's not always easy because your friend. It's not always easy in government because it's not easy to try and agree on resources and what the common good is. So it's difficult, and we get mad, and we question the motivations of the people on the other side of the aisle as well. And it's tough to reason together about what is most important and what the common good is and how to get there. And yet this is the vital struggle that we are called to, especially in a democracy, and that we had better get used to disagreement, or we will end up in a dictatorship where no one gets to disagree. Most of the things of value in the world require work and often conflict, but without this effort and work and conflict, we are left with tribalism or anarchy or dictatorship. So we had better get used to this. It's not going to be easy. This idea that it's not going to be easy. And what Jesus is giving his disciples is not a downer message like, oh man, you have no idea. You have no idea what you're in for. It is a triumphal inoculation. You know it's going to be hard, but oh my gosh, it's going to be so much tastier because of that. There is going to be this trial, but don't worry about it. It is the birth pangs of some life that you haven't even imagined yet. Something totally different that destroys and brings life in a way that you haven't imagined. This is the joy of this passage, that Jesus is calling his disciples to the fact that even though you're going to cough, sometimes it's not going to happen the right way, you will persevere, and God will be with you, and you will find life. Yep, we're going to have some doozy fights ahead of us. And this is the way the world grows. Not with a pillow, but a plow. Amen.